Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and welcome to my YouTube channel. It's great to see you all. Welcome to Wild and Live, the show that brings you some of the coolest, freshest animals on the planet. And we're doing that with the help of some really fabulous guests, some biologists and conservationists from across the world. On our last episode, we were joined by marine scientist Charlie Young. Now, she had one of the most unbelievable wildlife moments when she she was on holiday and she came across this massive green turtle while she was taking a stroll down the beach that had found itself wedged between these massive two rocks. And she spent about half an hour, close to an hour, trying to get this turtle out as its time was slowly running out. Super duper nail biting stuff there. If you want to find out more about Charlie's adventure and also have a look through some of the videos that we've done before, make sure you check out the video list once we're done with this episode. So for any of you new viewers out there, please remember there is a button down there. Have a look, quick look. It says subscribe, click on that and we can be friends, because we are now at over 100 subscribers. So for all of you that have joined us for this journey over the last 3 weeks, thank you so much for sticking with us and joining, and I hope that you're enjoying it. I'm really enjoying myself. I wish I had like a little party hat and a little kind of thing, but I don't. What I do have is a really cool guest lined up for you today. This guy is now today's guest sleeps with a horde of creepy crawlies right next to his bed. I mean, he absolutely loves bugs, and anytime he sees something with an exoskeleton, I swear I like to think that his face turns into the heart eyes emoji. Yussef, are you wild and live? Now I'm just going to do a little checkup because I can't hear you, so let's do this because this always happens. So let's make sure that we can definitely hear Yussef. Let's see. Can you start talking again? Let's see if we get your levels. Oh, there we go. Yeah. So let me. So this has caught us out a couple of times. So we're going to double, triple make sure that we can. So one of our fans, one of our viewers, Mateo. Mateo, can you hear Yussef's lovely dulcet tones? He says, "Oh no, we can't hear him either." But maybe in just a second he'll say, "Yes, we can." So I'm just going to wait to make sure that everybody can hear what you're saying. Yussef, do you see heart? Do you turn into the heart emoji's face when you see bugs?
Yeah, I love a good bug, love a good exoskeleton. I don't know, there's just something about them that fascinates me. They're so unreal. But yeah, I think that's a good way of describing it. Heart emoji.
Now you really love bugs. In fact, you've managed to get your own YouTube show with BBC Earth Kids. It's called Bugface. You get to put bugs on all sorts of people's faces, from famous influencers. Who else? Strictly Come Dancing stars.
Yeah.
Before I get onto that, I've got a little bone to pick with you because the show's called Bugface, but I swear you put creatures that aren't bugs on people's faces. So what is the difference between a bug and an insect and other?
So a bug isn't really much of a scientific term. The word insect is more scientific. So an insect is a hexapod, which means 6 feet. So every insect will have 6 legs and 2 sets of wings as a general rule. The word bug is a bit more ambiguous. So it includes things like myriapods, which are centipedes and millipedes. It includes arachnids, so like spiders and scorpions. So it's less of a scientific phrase, the word bug. So every insect is a bug, but not all bugs are insects. But having said
that's quite technical, isn't it?
It is, and there's a bit more confusion as well, because there's a order of insects called the Hemiptera, which are called true bugs. So that includes things like shield bugs and assassin bugs, which have that long proboscis sucking tube. So
they have like a little stylet that they can use to suck food through that tube. But can you help me with this, because mosquitoes also have a stylet?
They do, yeah,
don't they? And they theirs is very specialized, and they use it to feed on blood. But are mosquitoes bugs?
Mosquitoes are bugs, yeah. So they're bugs and they're insects, so they have 6 legs. But a lot of insects have, so as a rule, they have 2 sets of wings. But a lot of the time, one set of those wings are modified into something else. So if you see an insect with only 2 wings, that doesn't mean it's not an insect. So they might have like a hard wing case, which are just modified wings. They could have what's called hold tears. Pretty sure that's how you pronounce it. And flies have those. So they're modified wings that basically act like a bit of a gyroscope to help with stability. So there's a lot of modifications out there.
Nice. I can see why you love bugs and insects, because there's so much to learn about them, and so many cool adaptations. Let's go back onto Bugface.
Okay.
I want to know, what was the best reaction, and who was it with?
Okay, this is tricky because there's been a lot of good reactions. As I'm sure you can imagine, bugs freaked a lot of people out. One of the first actual episode we ever filmed was with a guy called Lewis Ball. He's like a YouTuber influencer, and he had giant African millipedes. And still to this day, he's got one of the best reactions. He did this high pitched, like, silent scream. Like, it was hilarious. There's also a guy called Johannes Radebe, who's a Strictly Come Dancer dancing dancer. He's brilliant. He had flat millipedes, so similar species, lots of legs again, and he was freaking out. He was grabbing hold of my hand. I thought he was going to break my hand at one point.
I saw the video. It kind of looked like he was giving birth at one point.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it felt like.
So those 2 reactions were from, what are their names again?
So there's Lewis Ball and Johannes Radebe.
Fantastic, Lewis and Johannes.
Yeah.
Great reactions from them. So, I think that you love the reactions almost as much as the insects. Where did that passion come from? Because you actually sleep with some bugs right next to your bed.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, you're making me out to be a bit of a weirdo there, but yeah, I do that. My love of bugs it's always been there, and it's not just bugs; it's animals in general. I'm sure if you speak to most animal people, they don't really have a defining moment where they discover they loved animals. It's always just been present in their lives. So I remember I was that weird kid in the playground, like digging for worms. My dad's Moroccan, so we spent a lot of time in Morocco, and I'd chase dung beetles and find scorpions in the desert. So I've always had like a fascination with the natural world.
I think that's an interesting point that you make, because kind of looking at your journey and seeing where you are now, most parents would probably discourage their kids from getting mucky and digging stuff up, which you can understand. So how can parents and kids kind of find that balance between exploring and finding out what exists out in their garden or in their local park, between parents not wanting them to get too grubby?
Yeah, I mean it's the balance, isn't it? You can understand why they wouldn't want to get too grubby, but really you just got to get out there, get your hands dirty. I mean, we're lucky in the UK. We don't have any really dangerous bugs. Obviously, if you're in a different country, you've got to be careful. If there are poisonous, venomous insects, don't go handling those.
Yeah.
But it's all just it's part of a learning experience. There's only so much you can learn from looking at an insect on a screen. Actually getting out there and handling one is just a completely different experience. So I would.
So they should just get out there, and so don't listen to your parents, is what Yussef is saying.
Yeah.
Just ignore them.
Parental advice.
Now you actually have 2 of your personal insect collection, two insects from your personal collection.
Yeah.
They are some lovely, beautiful, long-legged ladies. Can you introduce them to everybody and tell them what type of stick insects they are? Whilst Yussef does that, everybody, just a reminder, if you have any questions for him, pop them into the chat box right now, and I'll be able to ask Yussef on your behalf. So, over to you, Yussef.
So, I can't actually see myself on the screen, so I'm gonna hope that I'm in.
I will let you know once they're up, for sure.
Can you see that one?
Let's have a look. I am looking at the wrong screen. So yes, wow.
Okay, so here we've got
as big as your hand.
Yes, it is, but this is actually, believe it or not fully grown. So this is still a juvenile. If you want a fully grown one, this is what a fully grown female looks like.
Oh my god! And are they the same species?
They are, yeah. So they're the same species. They're called Diaphragdes gigantea, giant green bean stick insects. They come all the way from the Caribbean. Which I'm pretty jealous of, actually. But they're just
yeah, right now.
So these are the females. So these are bright green. I will show you what a male looks like a bit later on, because they're very, very different looking. But I don't want to ruin the surprise too early.
This is here's a question, probably the question of questions. Why are stick insects shaped like sticks?
It's all to do with mimicry. So I always call stick insects like the masters of mimicry, because they're just, I mean, like this on my hand, obviously they're quite vivid, like you can see them quite easily. But if this was in like a eucalyptus plant or anything like that, you would just wouldn't spot them, even with the human eye. So it's all to do with mimicry. And they don't just, it's not just visual mimicry, they also do behavioral mimicry. So a lot of species will sort of sway a bit like that to look like a twig swaying in the wind.
Okay. So that's why they move from side to side.
Yeah, so that's like a form of behavioral mimicry. And yeah.
So everything that so everything from their looks to their behavior and the way they move is kind of geared towards protecting them, and it'd be great. We'll pick up on some of those defense mechanisms in a little bit. I can see all those segments of those insects. Can you explain a bit about those segments and kind of how they all come together to make this stick insect?
I'm going to pop one back because it's going to be
for sure
hard to do it too. But we'll go with the biggie. And so if you have a look at her general body shape, you can see what I was saying about the 6 legs. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So every hexapod or insect will have 6 legs. At the end of those legs, you've got what is called the tarsi. And at the end of the tarsi are the little claws and little suction cups. So that's how she's clinging on to me right now. So it is a little bit sharp. It feels a bit like needles sticking in you because they do have sharp claws.
I think that everyone that just heard that was like, nope. I don't think that they feel like needles. They kind of feel like little tiny hooks.
Yeah, well, yeah,
right.
Yeah, until you have them on your face, though, then they feel like needles.
True.
But moving up from there, you can see every insect is made up of 3 main body parts. So you've got the head end there. Then in the middle, you've got the thorax. They can.
So that's kind of like the middle of the body, the kind of the chest equivalent. On a human.
It's also where the legs join onto. So you can see that about this area. It's also where the wings are. So you can see on the female, she's got tiny little wings there. You can make those out. And then the third body segment, which is normally the biggest, is the abdomen. And then because she's a female, she has a ovipositor at the end there, which is that little spike. Basically, that just helps her to direct her eggs when she's laying them.
And so where does she, if the ovipositor is on the top, how does she, it's on the bottom. Sorry, I'm looking at the wrong, I'm looking at another, at the YouTube image, which is about 10 seconds behind. Okay. So yeah, at the end where she deposits the eggs. Now you've got a couple of eggs on standby. So can we have a quick look at those? And can you explain to us the benefit of those eggs looking the way they do, and how the female goes about laying them? Does she does she fold a leaf and lay them in the leaves? Does she just drop them?
No, she just drops. Now I'm dropping them. I'll pick them up. But no, she just drops them. It's the funniest thing. She'll just flick it with her ovipositor. But can you make them out on the screen there?
Yeah, if you could bring that a little bit closer. Yeah, nice. That's a great shot right there.
So you might notice. So what I was saying about the adults with their camouflage and their mimicry, even the eggs are camouflaged. So their eggs actually mimic seeds. So as they flick them, they look like a seed sitting on the ground because they don't bury them or anything. So they've got to be camouflaged to protect themselves from predators. There is another theory about this. Nobody's 100% sure why they look like seeds. The other theory is that birds will actually eat them and poop them out as they fly away. So it's an
interesting
dispersal mechanism to disperse genetics.
Now, has that been proved?
It's not been proved. There's a lot of studies. This is one of the theories. So there's a lot of papers on it, but nobody's 100% sure why exactly they mimic seeds yet. Sorry.
It seems like a really neat adaptation, by camouflaging those seeds, especially if the females, neither the female or the male stays around to look after them. Very, very cool there. So let's on the subject of hatchlings, do baby stick insects look like stick insects when they're born? Now because that sounds like a really odd question, but I mean, most humans don't look like humans when they're first born. No. Come on, let's be real.
Yeah, it's true. They're like aliens. No, so these guys look exactly like the adults, just really, really small. So this species in particular will be about a centimetre long when they're born, which is quite remarkable because those eggs are not a centimetre, but they fold themselves, unravel themselves out of those eggs, and they basically look exactly like mini adults. They're not going to be this chunky. They're a lot slenderer, and they have fairly big heads as well, compared to the rest of the body, which is quite cute. But in general, they just look like mini versions of the adults.
Yeah, that's cool. I love that you're so comfortable handling those stick insects, and you seem to be a real champion for them. I'd like to talk about their size, because as I understand, I had to dig through my notes, and there was a time, I can't remember which period it was, but there was a time in the Earth's history when there was far more oxygen in the air, and that had a profound effect on the size of insects. We used to have giant dragonflies, and that has to do with the way that they breathe. So can you explain how our lovely little lady here is breathing at the moment?
Yeah, for sure. So insects don't have lungs. They're completely different respiratory systems to us. They have what's called spiracles. Basically, they are little almost microscopic holes along the length of their bodies, normally on their thorax and abdomen. And the spiracles are controlled by minute muscles that open and close these little holes, and then they have a very basic gas exchange system. So it's a very basic way of respiring, but it works for them.
So essentially, as much as they do have those muscles, it's the amount of oxygen that they can take in is largely governed by simply that gaseous exchange of air kind of going into those spiracles, and then coming out again.
Exactly. Yeah. It's all to do with spiracles. Spiracles are also the thing that give things like hissing cockroaches and locusts the ability to make the noises they do. So they force air up these small holes. So I guess you could say it's the equivalent of their mouths, but that's not technically correct because they don't.
It's like a mouth, lung, air sac all combined, like a cool network of air tubes, a network of like capillary air tubes almost.
Yeah.
And I suppose, as I was mentioning earlier, that's kind of what limits them from getting any bigger in this time of the Earth's history, because the oxygen content is much lower.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it was, don't quote me on the time, but hundreds of millions of years ago, the oxygen levels, the carbon dioxide levels were all different, and like you say, there were giant dragonflies, giant scorpions. So
man, that would be cool. I bet you would absolutely love that if I somehow come across Dr. Emmett Brown and Marty McFly. I'm gonna ask them to borrow the DeLorean, and we'll head back to that time. I think you'd go wild. One interesting thing about stick insects is that they exhibit something called sexual dimorphism, and you've touched on it a little bit already. Can you explain how that affects the way that they look and their appearance?
Yeah, so sexual dimorphism, basically, in a basic sense, it just means the males and females look completely different. So for an everyday example, if you look at mallards, so the male has that nice green head, they're different colors, the female's generally brown. So stick insects also do this, but they take it to the extreme. It's just got hooked on my jumper there. So this is the female. She's got big, chunky green body and tiny little wings. And then I do also have a male specimen here. Sadly, I don't have any living males, but this guy lives in my freezer. Much to my mind.
Okay, so that's, if you could bring that a bit closer for us. Let's have a look.
This is a male. Nice. So in general, they're a lot smaller. And also the main difference is the color. And the wings. So if you notice those wings, they run all the way down the length of their body there. So the males can fly, the females can't.
And I suppose that's because the females are trying to invest all their energy and all their resources and all their time into developing those eggs within her body, and then waiting for a male who's trying to get lucky to fly, land on her, and then for them to start mating.
Exactly, yeah. So it's just a numbers game, really. The males want to mate with as many females as possible, obviously.
So the way that you're handling that little, I reckon we should run a competition, and I'm gonna we'll get onto that in a bit. But all the things that you've described so far about that stick insect, and I think they seem to have life sus. They seem super duper harmless, but surely that then makes them quite vulnerable to predators and to predation.
Yeah.
So what kind of, other than their camouflage or blending in and looking like sticks, do they have any other defense mechanisms?
They do. Depends on the species. Mostly it's the camouflage. The camouflage is the big thing for these guys. But they do have another defense mechanism where, so she's not going to do it because she's quite friendly, but they will put those hind legs up into the air into like a V shape. And a lot of species have pretty big spikes on those back legs. And if you put your finger or any kind of like small thing that be in pain quite easily, in between those legs, she can snap those legs shut, and in some species that can even draw blood with those spikes. So it's quite a it's more painful than you'd expect. But especially species like the jungle nymphs, which are the big, bulky stick insects, they have massive spikes on those back legs.
So they can defend themselves. They aren't completely harmless.
Yeah.
What you've just described reminds me of a praying mantis. I understand that stick insects and praying mantis are different species, but what do the stick insects eat? Do they hunt in the same way as praying mantis do?
No, so they have completely different diets. So praying mantis, like you say, they hunt. They're carnivores. They eat smaller invertebrates. These guys are completely herbivorous, so they'll just eat plant matter. So things like eucalyptus in the wild. They'll also eat bramble, oak, things like that. So completely herbivorous. They don't eat any kind of invertebrates at all.
So they're vegans, super cool vegans.
Vegan bugs, yeah.
Really chill. Yussef, I think that we should, because you've got two females with you and neither of them have names.
Yes.
So I think that we should try and get some name suggestions for them. So so anybody that's watching, if we've got two females to name, I'd like you to come up with some names to throw over to Yussef. Whilst we do, I'm going to have a quick look through questions. So I want to make sure that we get our questions in. We've got one from Thomas and one from Matteo. Let's start with Matteo.
Yeah.
Could you keep a stick insect? Are they hard to, Matteo wants to know if stick insects are hard to look after and also how long they live for.
Okay, good question. So they're not the hardest to look after. Obviously, you have to do your research, like with any pet you're going to have. You've got to make sure you've got a food source to start with, obviously. So I'm quite lucky. I've got a big bramble bush out in my garden, so I can feed these guys. It's because they can live up to about a year, just over a year sometimes. So they're not the longest living things, but you've got to make sure you can look after them for that length of time. Another thing to consider is humidity, because they come from, these guys, the Caribbean, so they like it quite humid. So I mist them down with a spray bottle a couple of times a day for that. And obviously the size can put a lot of people off, but in general that's not that shouldn't be a concern. So they're pretty easy to keep as pets, I would say, but just make sure you do your research.
So give a nice big tank so that they can continue to grow, keep them misted.
Yeah.
I read up that if they're not misted enough and they don't have that humidity within their cases, that it can affect the way that they molt.
Yeah, they need humidity to molt. So if you don't have enough humidity, it can even cause death if you don't keep them correctly like that. They get stuck in their molt, which isn't a nice death, I would imagine. So humidity is really, really important, but just as much is ventilation. So I keep them in an enclosure with mesh sides. For one, it helps them to climb on the mesh, and also it keeps it nice and ventilated, which they really like.
Awesome. I think we're almost out of time. I just want to make sure. So yeah, Thomas was asking what drives that selection between the males and the females to make them so different, but we've already touched on that, which is great. Names. Okay, so we haven't got any name suggestions. So we've got two. I mean, like, maybe we'll come back to this. Yeah. I want some comments down below. I'm not going to give away my suggestions. I mean, we could call one Felicia.
Felicia.
Felicia. That doesn't make sense. No, Sally the stick insect.
Yeah,
no.
I'm representing, so you do.
Let's. Yeah, I'm gonna get back to you on that. But just a few more questions before I let you go, Yussef. What's the strangest, oddest bug you've ever come across? Because I've seen some really strange ones. I think of are they Hercules beetles?
Yeah,
but during the larval stage, I've seen these time lapses of these giant beetles developing over time.
Yeah.
And it kind of looks a bit odd, but strangely mesmerizing.
Yeah, I mean the larvae of those Hercules beetle can weigh up to, like, I think it's over 100 grams, which is just insane for a bug. But another really cool thing I've been lucky enough to work with on Bugface is a bug called a vinegaroon, which is it's an arachnid, so it's a similar species to a scorpion, just doesn't have the stinging tail. And basically that can spray out acetic acid, which is a really concentrated vinegar, and that to me is just really weird. So I like creatures with cool adaptations.
Awesome. Yussef, the zoology guy, what's next for you?
So I've got a few projects coming up I'm working on. Can't really say much about, and there's a lot of NDAs and that in this industry. But there's a few things coming up for sure. There's going to be a lot more bug faces coming out. We filmed 21 episodes in total at the moment, and I think there's about 8 out at the moment. So there's a lot more bug faces.
Oh, so loads
to come. A lot of really cool people. I think the next episode's Dick and Dom, so that'll be fun.
Great, nice. Well, hopefully we'll get maybe episode 22, and you can ask a certain someone to come and join you on Bugface. Let's take before I let you go, let's take one closer look at that wonderful stick insect. There it is, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Fantastic. What was the name of that stick insect again?
Diaphragdes gigantea. That's the
Diaphragdes gigantica.
Or giant green.
And what's the common name?
So giant green bean stick insect seems to be the most common, but there's a few different.
Fantastic. Yussef, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure having you on. Really appreciate it, and I'm sure we'll catch up again soon.
Absolutely. Loved it. Thank you very much.
Nice one. Take care, Yussef. I'll chat to you soon.
Bye.
All right. Bye. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was Yussef. What an amazing creature. So great to be able to meet people like him that have such a huge passion for animals, even if they might seem a bit odd and strange to start with. Some fantastic facts there for sure. I think that's all that we've got time for today. Tomorrow, not tomorrow, next week on Monday, we're going to be joined by adventure wildlife filmmaker Ben Harris. He's going to be talking about his wildlife adventures, including a really special trip where actually I joined him and he was filming real life unicorns. Yep. And on that bombshell, I think that's all that we've got time for. Remember, subscribe, press that button down below, and it would mean the world if you could also leave a comment and let me know what you think of the show so far. So until next time, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next week, Monday.